What's going on, everybody? This is Tyler Anderson from Tyler's Real Fishing and Lucky Tackle Box, and today I'm going to be explaining to you guys, using rigging, retrieval, and location, how to catch more fish in the baits to come in your Lucky Tackle Box. The bait that I'm going to be explaining this month is the Gifted Grub by SMARTBAITS. Now, this bait has a lot of cool features that really excel in cold water. Let's get started. Now, I'm in no way sponsored by the company SMARTBAITS, but they are doing something very innovating in the fishing space, and that is creating soft plastics that change color with water temperature. And so this grub here goes from chartreuse in warm water to blood red in cold water. Now, to be honest, I'm not exactly quite sure why they want a bait to change colors, but I do know why the color red is good in cold water, and that brings us to our first point about rigging. Now, the reason why I'm going to suggest that you guys hold off, especially if you're in the south and you're getting your Lucky Tackle Box and the water's not quite cold enough yet, the reason I'm saying hold off to use this until it's cold is because, first, a grub very well represents a small shad, even a small bluegill, depending on what type of pond or lake you're fishing. And because this bait turns red in cold water, which is often synonymous with the wintertime, shad die off in the wintertime and in the fall. I don't know if shad turn red, but I do know that when shad bleed, it's red just like we do. And so that's why I think this bait would excel very well on, light line with a shaky head or a tiny, ball head jig, just like you throw a grub in a highland reservoir with clear water. So I'd say this bait would excel best in cold water on a small jig head with light tackle. But as you can see today, I'm in short sleeves. I'm actually sweating right now here in Texas, and I was tasked with catching fish on this bait in the current conditions. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to put this on two different baits as trailers. I'm going to put this grub on the back of a buzz bait, because we're fishing dirty water today, and on the back of a chatterbait. So let's talk about those two types of rigging. So I'm fishing a small lake here this evening, and so I'm going to start off by throwing the Gifted Grub on the back of a chartreuse and white chatterbait. Now, that fits the perfect color pattern of this bait, chartreuse of the grub, and the warm water is not going to change the color of this bait, and so it'll go great on the back of this chatterbait. And so basically, all you do, I don't feel like I have to show the process of this a whole lot, but a few of you guys at home, I'm sure have never rigged that many trailers in the back of your bait. And so I'm going to take off this V&M bait that I had on here. I'm going to grab the Gifted Grub. And what I like to do with trailers is basically just kind of line up the grub with the hook, just to kind of see how far along I would have to poke it before the hook bend starts coming back up. And so it looks like it's about 3/4 down the body of the bait. So I'm going to take the grub, line it up straight down the middle, and just start threading until I get to about the 2/3 section of the grub. And then I'm going to poke it out, feed it on through, and right there you have yourself a great chatterbait trailer. Now, I believe I kind of looked in the water for a few minutes and I saw the forage these bass are feeding on is bluegill. And in a dirty water situation, very shallow fish lake, I'm going to say this bait is going to be killer today. As fall starts to kick up, one of my favorite baits to throw is a buzz bait, especially a black buzz bait. I just feel like it catches more fish than a white or a chartreuse or a shad colored buzz bait in most scenarios to me. And so even though this bait, this Smart Grub, is a chartreuse bait, I'm still going to put it on the back of the buzz bait just like I would the chatterbait. Even though it doesn't match the color, I believe it still serves the same purpose in terms of getting a fish's attention. So if you guys don't know this already, bass feed, they don't really feed based on sight a whole lot unless it's very clear water. They feed based on shadows and different kinds of colors. And so if you are fishing in dirty water, you want your bait to either be very bright or very dark, because fish like to feed on silhouettes. That's why in the early morning time with topwater, you're going to throw a black buzzbait, black frog, a dark colored spook, those types of things. And so basically I'm just going to hit the best of two worlds here, chartreuse grub as the trailer and a black buzzbait as the topwater. So let's get started with what kind of rods and line I throw with these. So if you guys follow my channel at all, you know that I love to throw chatterbaits and crankbaits both on a crankbait rod. Now, I did happen to leave my 7/6 crankbait rod at home, which is what I usually throw crankbaits on. So today I'm going to be throwing it on a Lew's Custom Speed Stick Light 7/3 medium heavy. It's called the Magnum jig rod, but I feel like it has great potential to be a good chatterbait rod, and I've caught plenty of fish on it. Basically what it is, it's a long rod, 7/3, to get plenty of long casts out of it, but it does have a soft tip to be able to work the chatterbait in and out of tough situations like shallow grass and shallow wood like we're going to be fishing today. Now, the line that I'm throwing on this is 17-pound fluorocarbon. For the situation today, it's probably a little bit too heavy. I would go 12 to 14 pound for a chatterbait of this size. But really, in small lakes and small ponds, you can get away with 17-pound fluorocarbon. And the reason I flow fluorocarbon over mono is because fluorocarbon doesn't stretch as much. Yes, it does have some stretch. People will tell you that fluorocarbon doesn't have stretch, are lying, because I've been able to stretch fluorocarbon before. And I'm not throwing braid because the water is not quite chocolate milk dirty. It is a kind of a Florida brackish dirty. That's why I'm throwing the fluorocarbon. And the reel that I'm choosing is a high-speed Lew's Custom Speed Spool Pro in a 7:6:1 gear ratio. So with topwaters, I would usually throw most of my topwaters over super heavy cover, whether that's deep inside wood or deep inside thick matted grass. But today the shoreline cover is pretty sparse, and so I'm gonna be throwing this on a Lew's Custom Speed Stick 7.2 football jig rod. I find this rod is very, very good for short casts with shallow topwaters. And I'm throwing this on a Lew's Speed Spool Tournament Light, one of my favorite reels that throws so far, and 65-pound braid. Just because you're throwing topwater, I wanna get the best hook set possible. So hopefully that helped you guys in terms of rigging. Now for retrieval and location, we're gonna head out on the water on the kayaks and catch you guys some fish. We'll see you out there. All right guys, so when I'm talking about retrieval with the chatterbait first, we're gonna go over the chatterbait, then the buzzbait. What I like to do is cast it out there, let it sink to the bottom, and then slowly start reeling it back, kind of like a crankbait or a spinnerbait. And when I hit a piece of cover, I'm either going to speed it up or I'm gonna let it fall to the bottom. And it's just because of that blade and the action that blade presents in the water, the flash it has. I wanted to have as much flash as possible in this dirty water to get the fish's attention. So I'm gonna give it a fairly fast retrieve. I'm not gonna say I'm blazing it in like a rattle trap or something like that, but I don't want it to bog down in the bottom and get stuck in the mud. And so I'm gonna cast it up there, let it sit, and kind of slowly start to retrieve it back. And kind of part of location as well. As you can tell, I'm paralleling the shoreline, which means I'm casting my lure in the strike zone for as long as possible and hoping to get these fish to react. Occasionally I like to give it a little jerk like this in open water. Maybe that gets a fish to commit that hadn't in the past. And the deeper I go, of course, the deeper I'm gonna have to let my bait fall, and then the slower I'm gonna have to reel it to keep it on the bottom. If you reel the bait with the same exact speed up shallow as you would out deep, you're gonna end up reeling way high in the strike zone and not getting those fish that are sitting down there on the bottom. Got some grass down there. I'll kind of give it some pops to get it out of that grass and let it sit back down. So with location, you want to look for high percentage areas like I always talk about. And one of those is this point right here. As you might be able to see, I'm kind of backed into it. I picked the most obvious point on the entire lake to paddle across the lake towards and try to catch some fish at. Now my buddy has already caught a few on his different colored chatterbait. He had a blue, and so I can already tell that blue is probably going to get more bites than chartreuse does. But I still think there's fish around here to be caught on this chartreuse bait because it does represent this bluegill, and we're gonna keep pounding it out. Oh, got one right on the standing timber, folks. I don't think it's very big. Yeah, I don't think it's very big. Oh, there he is. Not a giant, but another good part of location is finding out where those fish are hanging on. And that's my first bite right next to some standing timber over here. So get this fish in on the grub. Look at that, popped right out. Not a big guy, but a beautiful fish for sure. And we'll let you go. See you later, bud. Thanks for playing. So when I'm retrieving a buzz bait, I usually like to give it just a straight retrieve, and then occasionally when I'm around a piece of cover like I am this wood here, I'm gonna cast it kind of up there, straight retrieve, and then kind of a little faster, give it some pops here and there to attract any fish that are potentially hanging right next to the piece of cover. And I'm not saying that a normal retrieve wouldn't get them to bite. I just think a little tiny speed up on your retrieve is gonna get those fish to finally commit. Also, anytime you're fishing around docks or rocks or big stumps and laydowns, a great thing to do is to knock your buzz bait against the branch. So let's say this branch over here is a dock post. I'm basically gonna reel right alongside of it, and then if I can, well, I got stuck, but you get the gist. You want your blades to knock against that piece of standing timber or that dock post or whatever you're throwing against, because it just creates a disturbance in the lure, creates something different in case the fish has been following it and he hasn't quite decided to eat it yet. If it deflects off something, that could be the choice that he makes right there to nail it. Got him. Get in here, boy. Oh, hand slipped off the reel there. Boom. Got that fish in a record time, folks. As you saw what I did there, I was gonna explain it. And actually, I'll let this fish go and then I'll explain what I was doing. See ya, amigo. So what I did there, especially when you're fishing buzzbaits, is very, very important, is engaging your reel as soon as your bait hits the water, oftentimes before. So I'm gonna explain that to you guys right now. If you're throwing a Texas rig, you want your bait to go out there and sink to the bottom. But because a buzz bait is a topwater and not a floating topwater, now a spook, a frog, those are all floating, and so you can let the bait sit there. But if you throw a buzz bait out and let it sit, it's gonna sink down to the bottom and not accomplish what it was meant to do. And so basically what you have to do with a buzz bait is keep your thumb on the reel, almost switch your hands in midair and be ready to engage it as soon as it hits the water. So give it a cast, switch, engage. So as soon as your bait hits the water, you get maximum efficiency on the strike zone. So let's say you cast it out there, let it sink for a few minutes, change hands, do a backlash, then you reel it, 1, 2, 3. That's like 3 or 4 seconds before the bait is ever on the top of the water, and you are losing so much potential fish catching time. So it's very important to cast it out there, engage, and start it right away. So the minute that I arrive at a pond or lake, the first thing I do is check out location. So I look at this lake and I see there's some shallow areas with grass, there's some shallow areas with wood on that side. There's a shaded side, which is good because in the evening, especially with topwater, you want to fish the shaded side first because that's the side the fish are most likely pushing up on to feed for that nighttime, shallow time feed. And so there's also one deep side with a dam on that side where I assume the fish are going to be stacked because it is summertime, the water is hot, and those fish are probably feeding out deep. So what I want to do with location is just look for high percentage areas that have fish. I don't want to go blazing down the shoreline if it's 100 degrees outside because that's probably not where the fish are going to be. Now, if we are talking about the gifted grub in the winter time, I'll kind of explain to you guys in case you're watching this video for later or you save this bait for the winter time like I explained. You want to be checking for areas that have shad. You want to be looking for either areas with fish schooling and you know, throwing shad up in the air and you see kind of dead shad all over the water, or you're looking for areas on your GPS, on your Lowrance, you know, sonar units where you see tons of bait balls. That's where you want to throw a small jig head with a grub. So that is the video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope that it taught you something about how to catch more fish on a grub, not just in the standard fishing of a grub that most people do, which is on a jig head. Now, if you guys have any questions at all about this type of fishing or any fishing in general, make sure you guys check out my channel, Tyler's Reel Fishing, or put a comment down on this section below and I'll make sure to answer it. Now, I love working for Lucky Tackle Box, and I would love it if you guys would subscribe to Lucky Tackle Box. And if you're watching this video and thinking, well, dang, I don't even have a Lucky Tackle Box subscription yet, you guys are behind it, and you guys should use my discount code. I believe it's Tyler Anderson 1 or TRF. It'll be down in the description below to get $5 off your first box. And we'll see you guys in the next episode of Lucky Tackle Box.